When something is so good that everyone in the world is watching that it's the most pirated thing of the year, some people are bound to try and find things that are wrong with it. For example, Mandalorian Season 2 just came out a few weeks ago, and I would say the general consensus is that it was pretty amazing. But that did not stop people. What did they find wrong with it? Boob armor. Boob armor, Mandalorian boob armor, because girls have boobs. That was what was wrong with the show. I don't really got much else to say about that, but yeah, that's really what it is. I mean, kudos to them, for that being the only thing that they find wrong with the show. But yeah, other than that. Well, like I just said, The Mandalorian Season 2 has just completed, and the general consensus of it all was that it was amazing. It had all the things Star Wars fans wanted. It was inclusive, and it was just really well made. You can tell that Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni are genuine Star Wars fans. This seemed like a passion project at their end. This gave me the same excitement as watching the original trilogy and the prequels as a kid. It brought me the bit of dopamine that I needed in my life. You see, Star Wars right now is in an interesting spot. You have the die-hard fans, like me, you have the casual watchers, and you have the haters. I am not discrediting the haters. There is a lot wrong with the Common Era Star Wars. The sequel trilogy was so poorly received in its efforts to bring the universe back to life, but Disney has so much money that it's virtually impossible for them to fail at Star Wars. They can just keep trying. Things were not looking up for Disney's method of doing Star Wars, but why was the sequel trilogy and even Solo and Rogue One so poorly received, but The Mandalorian wasn't? When this show was first announced, everyone's first thought was that it was going to be a Boba Fett story, myself included. Later on, when more details were released to the public, we found out that the show is going to be about a separate Mandalorian that isn't Fett, even though Boba isn't actually a Mandalorian. Some people were disappointed, and some were excited. See, for me, I was in the group of excited people. I get to see stories from my favorite fictional universe that isn't about the Skywalkers. Don't get me wrong, I love the Skywalker stories because they are an enormous part of the Star Wars universe, but seeing how big this galaxy is and the different things that go on is just amazing to me. What The Mandalorian did for people is brought a feeling to us that all Star Wars fans know very well: hope. As you go through, you can definitely see the people that are making the show, like Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, are genuine Star Wars fans. There's no doubt in my mind that Jon Favreau will go down as a legend for not only revitalizing Star Wars with his passion project, but also bringing the Marvel Cinematic Universe to life. As for Dave Filoni, he will go down as a Star Wars god because of what he's done for the Star Wars universe. His work on the Clone Wars, especially this final season, was immaculate. It's like they sent out one of those Google surveys to every fan and was like, hey, what do you want to see in Star Wars? And they got like 1 million responses, and Dave sat there like, you want to do all of them? And John just says back, yeah, let's do it. And the whole room clapped. Season 2 of this show made me realize that there is a wrong way to do inclusivity and a correct way. To be honest, when I watched this final episode and saw the scene of all the women in the crew fighting, it didn't even come across my mind that they were all women until it was over. Like, there is a difference between an all-women team and a team that happens to be made up of women. It wasn't in your face like in Endgame, or to be honest, all these other big-budget movies like Charlie's Angels.
I think women can do anything.
Just because they can doesn't mean they should.
Or Captain Marvel or something like that.
You do know why they call it a cockpit, don't you?
You know why? It's because they're fleshed out characters. They have personality other than, I'm a girl, so you shouldn't think I'm weak. Never once did I think that these characters are weak. Seeing Casca Reeves go toe-to-toe with Boba Fett was just nuts to me. But it worked, because these are strong and developed characters who happen to be female. Sometimes fan service can be too much. To be honest, fan service can be a real turnoff for some people. Star Wars had some issues with that, especially in the sequel trilogy, because it felt forced. Like in The Last Jedi, people were predicting Leia was force-sensitive for years, but when it finally came to be, she Mary Poppined her way through space. Like, it was such a forced moment, and it didn't feel genuine. Whereas in The Mandalorian Season 2, especially, the fan service was done right. It had a little of something for everyone, and Favreau understood what he was doing. He realized that there was more to Star Wars than just the Skywalkers, and so He put Bo-Katan, Ahsoka Tano, and the Darksaber in to please the Clone Wars watchers and the extended universe people. But he also realized that there's an older audience who doesn't want to watch those shows because they're targeted to a younger audience. Instead of forcing them to watch those shows to understand what's going on, he then created them as fleshed out characters. Not only that, but since he knew that there would be an older audience watching because it's live action, he put some stuff in there for them, like Boba Fett, Luke Skywalker, R2-D2. The difference between these acts of fan service and the movies is that these just kind of happened naturally. In their own separate stories, it made perfect sense for them to be there. For Luke, he just saved the galaxy from the Empire and is now trying to rebuild his own Jedi Order, so it makes sense for him to come for Grogu. Also, can we get Grogu Gang in the comments, please and thank you? For Bo-Katan, she's on a quest to win the Darksaber back from Moff Gideon, so it makes sense. For Ahsoka, in Rebels, she's trying to get back Ezra from Admiral Thrawn. Like, it lines up perfectly. Unlike in The Last Jedi, where they just felt like they needed to fill in the bingo cards like, Leia uses the Force, so let's throw that in there. Or in The Force Awakens, we need her to have Anakin's lightsaber, so let's just have her find it in a box on this random planet, but never explain how it got there unless you read it in the books, just to find out that some random Ugnaughts found it. Like, come on, Disney. Favreau is teaching a class on how to make Star Wars good right now, and you are failing. Well, after a good minute of praising The Mandalorian, I will say it doesn't come without its faults. But if Disney wants to keep this IP alive, then they're going to have to change up some things. First off, they need to realize that there is more to Star Wars than the Jedi. See, I enjoyed Rogue One more than any of the other movies because it was a separate story and it didn't focus around the Jedi. Yes, Jedi and Sith are very cool, but in my opinion, I loved how The Mandalorian did it. At least in this time period, they are supposed to be rare and very powerful. When Luke shows up, it's like he was unstoppable. That's how the Jedi should be. Powerful people you find very rarely. In the Star Wars universe as a whole, people don't even know if they really exist. It's just a
hokey religions.
And that's what's cool to me. The next thing they need to do is understand their fan base. Like I said before, is that Star Wars has a lot of different types of fans. It's like a spectrum. The Mandalorian was able to please a good majority of that spectrum, whereas a sequel trilogy only really satisfied the kid part of it all. People watch these shows and movies not because they want to give Disney money, but because they love it. Lastly, not make it push an agenda, or at least if it does, have it happen naturally. The Mandalorian did that right. Disney and Marvel, that whole area, haven't really been doing it right for a while. We don't watch Star Wars because we want to be taught a lesson. We watch Star Wars to see characters develop and experience stories that we can't in our world, to get away from real life for a bit and be dreamers. Overall, I understand how hard it is to make these shows. Jon Favreau understands the Star Wars universe, and to be honest, this feels like a passion project for him and Dave. I am so happy for this, and I'm so excited to see what's next. With all these new shows announced, I don't know whether to be excited or worried. Because I want to see all these shows do good, but I have a feeling this is Disney's way of being like, oh, the Mandalorian formula worked. Let's just throw a ton of these at people and see what sells. I hope to God I am proved wrong. But anyway, while we wait for all those to come out, hit the sub button and get notified when I upload next. Also, join my Discord and let's get a real community started. Lastly, check out a snippet of this song. My brother just released his first single and I'm very proud of him, so if you could check it out, it would mean a lot to him and I. Links in the description below. Out on Spotify and Apple Music now. See you next time.
Got 2 spades on my front plate, looking great. Parking in the handicap, smile on my face. Checking out the lady in the back of the place. What's her name? I don't know, but she got a nice face. Should I try to get her nowhere? I'ma see what it takes. 1 step, 2 step, better open up the gates. I got a plan. Give her a smirk while I'm rubbing my hands. Walking up slowly, upgrading my stance. She gave me a glance.